People don't listen to your story necessarily because they're fascinated with you. They listen because they're looking for hope themselves. And my prayer is that when you hear this, you don't just hear my story, you recognize your own way out. So in March of 2024, I listened to a sermon by Terry Savelle Foy called 5 Things Successful People Do Before 8 a.m. And something in me knew in that moment I needed to change how I was starting my day. So I made a decision and I started waking up at 5 a.m., making my bed, and spending 1 hour with God before I did anything else. Before my kids woke up, before work, before the world had access to me. And what's crazy is I never stopped. It's been over 2 years now. Every day I make up my bed and spend time with God. And it wasn't about being perfect. It was about taking authority over my day. It was like I was telling my life, all right, this is how it's going to be now. This is how we're living. And I thought that habit was just going to make me more disciplined. I had no idea it was about to change everything. It was definitely a setup. About 3 months in, something started happening to me out of nowhere. Things from my childhood started coming up, old memories and emotions, triggers I didn't even realize were there. And it didn't stop. It seemed like every day more would surface, and I realized I wasn't just building discipline. No, God was exposing what had been buried in me. Because the truth is, a lot of us are living from a pit we don't even know exists. And we spent years pushing things down, stuffing emotions, ignoring pain. But when you create space with God consistently, He starts bringing things to the surface so they can be healed. Things I didn't even know I needed. And I'm not going to make it sound pretty because it wasn't. It was the hardest year of my life. My emotions were all over the place. My day-to-day life was just in my nervous system. It was just crazy. I would wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes shaking uncontrollably. Like my body was releasing something it had been holding on to for all these years. It was ugly and raw and overwhelming. Like everything buried in me was finally coming out. But what I didn't realize at the time was this was my way out. This is what God was using to set me free. Because healing doesn't happen by avoiding what's inside of you. It happens when you allow God to bring it into the light. So instead of running from what I felt, I started sitting with God in it and asking Him, why do I feel this way? Where is this coming from? Lord, show me what you want to show me. And I stopped pointing fingers at everybody else and I started pointing them at me so I could change. And slowly, little by little, He started answering me. And it didn't happen overnight, but piece by piece, I started coming out of that pit. And what I've learned is this: God will meet you in consistency, not perfection, but consistency. Just small, simple decision like what I did to wake up, make up my bed, and sit with Him. That became the very thing He used to bring me into freedom. So if you feel stuck or overwhelmed and there's more going on the inside of you than you can explain, don't run from it or numb it, but bring it to God and sit with Him in it. And ask Him to show you the way out. Because what feels like everything falling apart might actually be the beginning of your healing. And you don't need some big, massive, life-changing moment to start. You just need a little pinhole of light and willingness to follow it.